Well, if you haven't touched your taxes yet, then guess what? You are not alone this year. More than 40% of Twitter users say they have yet to file their taxes. So, Dan, I got to ask you, what do they need to know as they're getting ready to submit?
They need to start moving here.
Well, yes.
I mean,
Clock's ticking.
especially if they're thinking that they're actually going to have a tax preparer available to do their tax filing, because there's a shortage of preparers. So if you're waiting until the last minute, there's actually a possibility you may not have somebody that can do this for you, meaning file an extension. We're pretty much at the point now where can people really get those returns done in time? Probably not.
Okay, so walk us through the biggest changes between last year and this year.
Sure. So I guess good news, bad news, depending on how you look at it, there aren't a lot of changes going on right now with the tax code. Why? Because Congress has been split and they haven't been able to decide on anything. So one of the things is good news. The standard deductions are larger this year. The other thing is that the tax brackets have moved. Not the rates, but the brackets have moved up, which also means a little bit more, a little bit less taxes to be paid. All right. So now there's some other things that maybe aren't such good news. So you have the child tax credit. Little bit smaller this year. Also, the expansion of the child and dependent care credit expiring. So that's not good news. The earned income tax credit also smaller. There was also a deduction out there basically for everyone, up to $300 for charitable deductions. That's now disappeared. So if you want to get a deduction for any charitable contribution, you must be filing a Schedule A, which means you're taking itemized deductions, not the standard deduction.
Sure. Now, everybody knows the common deadline, April 15th. But beyond that, what other key deadlines do people need to keep in mind as they are filing?
So we get a couple extra days this year, the way the calendar works out. It's April 18th for filing your tax return. Then we have the June 15th deadline, which relates to making your next estimated tax payment for those that are required to make estimated tax payments. And then you have the extended due date for your personal tax return, which is October 16th this year. So if you're not going to make the deadline next week, file an extension. All your tax has to be paid first, though. It's not an extension for taxes, only the return. And then you can file your return on October 16th.
We know that the IRS has been going through a massive effort as well, just to bring more people on to make sure that these returns get processed through. I mean, what type of timelines are we looking at there as well? What can people expect realistically?
Well, you know, this is the government, so things take a while to get moving. Yeah, I'm going to say something that is a little bit unpopular.
Okay.
And that is the IRS does need more resources. They don't have enough people to be able to process all these returns. I know people are afraid of, they're going to have more auditors. We're all going to get audited. Well, maybe some people, but we have to focus in on they don't have enough people to service the taxpayers, meaning answering questions and being able to process tax returns like your refund.
Yep.
So they are getting better, but they do need to bring on more people. I anticipate that's going to be about a 2-year cycle for them to catch up.
We had put the question to some of our Twitter followers out there and really just tried to engage them within this conversation, get a sense of what they want to know as well. One, what should I expect my taxes to look like as a new homeowner? That was one of the questions that came up from our following.
So what that question really relates to is, am I going to have enough deductions now that I'm a homeowner between your real estate taxes and your mortgage interest where it will be higher than the standard deduction? Now, the standard deduction is pretty high right now. So if you're going to exceed that because you're a homeowner, well, okay, now you're going to get some tax benefit. But if your itemized deductions, because you're a homeowner, are less than the standard deduction, then you're actually not going to get any additional tax benefits.
And then additionally here, another question that came in from our Twitter following. I love these questions. And in fact, continue to throw them onto the thread that we've got running on our poll as well here. But they say, if my office is in a state that I don't live in and I work remote, that topic of virtual employment reigns supreme right now for sure. Does that change my filing status at the end of the day? What do we know related to that?
Okay, so where you live and where you work, that's not an IRS issue. That's not a federal issue. That's a state issue. And now what you have is all these states are fighting to get more taxes. So there's actually a lot of litigation going on between the states where they're all trying to say, hey, those are our tax dollars in spite of where they live or where they work. So the answer to that is not black and white. It's actually gray. It depends which state you're living in and which state you're working in when it comes to remote work.
All right, Dan, you clearly had some good coffee here today, no doubt. Just lastly here, when we think about the number of homes that are trying to figure out, all right, what are the benefits that we could take advantage of? Where do we perhaps just need to pull in a professional to make sure that we get the best credits as well out there? And then additionally, those that are saying, all right, I have a portfolio as well that I have to account for. Perhaps that's something that we need to hit on. We've got a heavy investment audience out there, too, that's just wondering what some of the biggest changes in terms of some of their either capital gains or capital losses may have been in 2023, between 2022 and 2023.
There's been a lot of discussions about what changes may occur, right? But we're not in that position now. However, what's complicated a lot of things from a tax standpoint for investors is crypto. A lot of that reporting has become very complicated. So you have to look at it this way. If you're not a tax expert, why wouldn't you invest those dollars to have someone do it for you? There's plenty of things I'm not an expert in, so I have to pay someone else to do it for me. Why would you want to mess around with your taxes? I really believe unless you have a super simple return, it is probably a good investment to have someone who's seasoned in preparing tax returns to do that for you.
Yeah, I know if it's anything more than changing a light bulb, I'm probably going to call an electrician. Same thing with taxes largely there. Dan Geltrude, thanks so much for taking the time here with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.